Welcome back to the ADOTAT Show, where we sift through the digital circus to bring you the real deal. Today we've got Dominick Miserandino, the man who's navigated the wild west of the internet since dial-up was cutting edge. From taming SEO dragons to stacking firewood with his godson, this guy's seen it all. So grab your popcorn or your overpriced avocado toast and get ready for a ride through digital history with more twists than a cat on catnip. Trust me, you don't want to miss this.
Deserve to win when it matters most. Facing multi-billion-dollar bet the company litigation? No problem. That's why we're here. Troutman Amin, LLP is a true legal powerhouse.
Welcome to the ADOTAT Show, where the pixels meet the pavement and the buzzwords fear to tread. I'm your host, Pesach Lattin. Today we're dialing in Dominick Miserandino, the Dean of Digital, who's been outsmarting algorithms since they were just a twinkle in Silicon Valley's eye. Buckle up, it's going to be a ride through the cyber trenches with the man who can make data dance. Let's get going. Dominick, how's the ad tech game treating you? Cracking the code to consumer hearts, or are you just blocking pop-ups?
I think all the above. I'm honored to be on the show, of course, and honored with the energy here, too. That was a great intro you
Got here. As the maestro marketing, what's your digital once upon a time? Born with a silver mouse in your hand, or was it a climb from 56K to fiber?
More of the climb. I started the celebritycafe.com back in 1995. It was one of the first online pubs ever. Got that from out of a dorm room to, I think at the peak, we had about 15 people working on it, at least. Brought to an exit around 2016, at which point I promptly retired and then got right back into it. Inquisitor, Adirond Picks, YouNow, and a few others.
So with every shot, you've been around since 1995 when the internet was just a baby. You were already setting up shop at the Celebrity Cafe, as you mentioned. You've ridden the digital wave from the clunky days of dial-up to the high-speed world of 5G. In this ever-evolving digital circus, how do you keep from being the clown and stay ahead of the game?
I think it's the same game all along. In that, 1994, before it all started, I have fond memories of riding my bicycle to go to a building on the campus where you could go online. You couldn't go online unless you went to this physical location. I actually hung out with the guys who founded 2800 Hackers Magazine, and that's a real 90s reference if you're familiar.
Still around, by the way.
Yeah, I know those dudes.
2600 is still around.
Yep. Exactly. That was, what was it, mid-90s. But my point is the techniques haven't changed from that to when people were playing the affiliate games a lot more in the early 2000s to when Alta Vista switched to Google. All of these things have had a commonality. And the commonality is you're looking at the data, you're seeing what works, and you're making intelligent decisions based on what works.
Right. So with every shiny new tech toy from AI to blockchain comes a brand new headache. What has been your biggest crap moment in adapting to these changes? Was it like trying to explain Snapchat to your parents?
No, I think one of the tricks I've done is there's been half a dozen of those moments where I went, oh no, I have to figure this out. And I call experts in the industry. There's always these experts who I've become great friends with, and you just say, I don't understand this. I helped with YouNow, and there was John Brodsky, who was really brilliant in that arena, and I would sit with him and say, teach me this. This is something new. I ran Adirond Picks, which was all digital photos, and helping run that, you had the team there. So I've always, whenever there was that moment of, oh gosh, I don't know this one, I'm immediately calling in my experts saying, can you schedule a call or two or three, go off coffee and just talk for the next 4 hours. Learning by conversation to me is by far the number one.
So back in the day, the internet was the Wild West, and you were one of the cowboys. Can you share a Eureka moment when digital strategy paid off more than a winning lottery ticket? Or was it like finding that your blind date was a supermodel?
I think it was number two. There were moments there was a moment when one of our interviews with the Olsen twins, when they were, they must have been 8 or 10 at the time.
Wow.
Hit the algorithm, happened to go viral in Google. That was sending.
This had to be in the 90s, the mid-90s at least.
Mid-90s at the time.
Because by 2000s, they were drinking in New York City, right?
Yeah, I wasn't involved. It was way early, late 90s. After that, there was various stories that would hit at times that was strange to me. I remember when paraben-free products were big, the Celebrity Cafe was the number one paraben-free landing for SEO-wise. But there was also moments with Inquisitor. When we ran Inquisitor, there was that predecessor to ByteDance, whose name I forget at the time. It was a whole news engine. It was sending tons of traffic. There was mid 2015s. The Celebrity Cafe was part of MTV Ad Network and a few others, and there was also those moments. At times, it was the metaphor you used, that finding out your blind date's a supermodel. You're saying, "Wow, this is interesting." And in a sense, both of your questions are valid, where you have these moments on one hand of the screen where you're surviving and saying, "How do I figure this out?" And on the other hand, something good occurs and you're saying, "Wow, what do I do with that?" And my goal is never to overreact on either one, and to always kind of find that middle and say, even though this was amazing and this turned out amazing or this turned out horrific, neither scenario is something to get upset by or excited by, as much as one can control that.
So content has always been king, but the kingdom has changed. How do you ensure your content wears the crown in a court full of jesters?
I think content has one commonality. Right now I'm doing Retail Wire, which is B2B. It was Inquisitor and Celebrity Cafe, which was definitely mainstream. The commonality is the human interest. What do people click? What do they care about? What moves them? Resonates with them. And if you don't look at that, as a differing example, at around Pix, we initiated a lot of those flash sales before they were really big when I was there. And I started pulling in flash sales. But that's the human component. We enjoy immediate gratification, and we enjoy that. So I think content is king, and one needs to constantly think, what is resonating with that human audience? We forget, sometimes we do content or market based upon the digits, and the digits are the reflection of that human. And that step is the missing link at times. What is that thing that's resonating with that person, and figure it out.
So how do you keep your strategies fresh and avoid becoming a digital dinosaur?
You constantly have to keep it fresh, I guess, is the answer. In the sense that I always think, and I've quoted numerous times, how my great-grandfather was a sailor, an Irish sailor, and great-great-grandfather. And I'm sure when he went out to the ocean, he wasn't shocked every time a storm came up, saying, "How could this possibly be?" And it's the same with this, the same with content, same with digital. Since 90 till present, we're talking 29 years, the content is always whatever resonated. The methodology, those storms would vary, meaning now it's a more of a visual component. 10 years ago was such and such. I mean, how many people who are watching this probably marketed to Yahoo at one point, and Bing did not exist, and now it does. There is that common element throughout. So you're always in a storm, which is not a negative as long as you're aware of it. I'm sure my grandfather, the sailor, didn't say, "Oh my goodness, there's a storm, I should just retire today." He never would have done it. He was sailing on icebergs, and he didn't care. He knew this is what it was, and this is what it is.
So, as we look towards the future with AI promising to be the next big wave, how do you plan to surf atop this tsunami without wiping out? In other words, what is your vision for the next frontier in digital media and ad tech?
Kind of two questions in a way, because with AI, I think we're in the middle of it still. You see the one with the video where they're creating, I forgot the name of the product they call it, where they create the video by AI. I couldn't have thought of that. If you asked me 5 years ago, I never would have thought we would produce to this degree. Even, I remember people freaking out when Grammarly came out saying, "Oh my goodness, how could that possibly make everyone a good writer?" That's craziness.
Right.
I think we're in it, and we don't see it, and it kind of reminds me a lot of the late 90s, where the internet came about, and now we're all saying, wow. And then there was that, to me, the next wave was the high-speed wave. The next wave was the mobile, and then the high-speed wave, and with each of those waves, we innovate, and we say, hey, we got high-speed and mobile. Maybe we should invent something called mobile apps, which will allow us to order food to your doorstep in 14 seconds. I don't think we've seen what the it is. And when you're in the Wild West, you have the bad actors who are constantly pushing it one way, and then you have other people pushing it the other way. and where that tug of war settles, if you will, of pushing this to the umpteenth degree. I mean, with apps as an example, going back in time, people, when they first launched, you had bad players and bad actors. You had certain apps that were not the best in certain things found. When streaming came, extreme on that. So it's certainly in the finding stage at this point. The second part becomes when you're in that finding stage, I'm always investigating, I'm always looking, I'm always trying to see where it's going. But I think it's kind of almost, I hate using the sailing metaphor, but you're in the middle of this storm right now. Where is the end of the storm? We can't really see that far. Predictions of the future, I'm sure we're going to see how this evolves, but I think it's going to be an interesting debate because in the first, to me, the most extreme, we replace things. But I wonder, because we have already replaced certain aspects, you no longer have somebody answering the phone whenever you order your food. It's 100% app-based. But I don't know where we're at that point, so to speak.
I want to talk a little bit about cracking the code of consumer engagement. Engaging the modern consumer is like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube that's constantly changing colors. In your storied career, you've engaged audience from the dot-com bubble to today's TikTok teens. What is your secret sauce for keeping up with the fickleness of consumer tastes without losing your mind or your audience?
That's a deep one. I'll give you credit. That's a deep one. I think a lot of it, the secret sauce I'll tell people is I try to look at this from multi-skills in the sense that in the 90s, I built my own CMS. I was an ex-tech guy. Early 2000s, I wrote a book or two.
You said CMS, right?
Yeah, I wrote a
content management system.
Sorry, yeah, should have defined it. Content management system because we were doing the Celebrity Cafe, I didn't have it. No one had it. I had to make something like it.
Right.
I made an ad manager 2005. There was no such easy plug-and-play ad manager at the time. Clunky, terrible. If I showed a developer the code, they would probably punch me in the face saying, how dare you call this code?
What was it written on? Do you remember?
Perl. So I really myself. I very much embarrassed myself by having that out there. But that said, those multi-skills are the secret sauce. I think anybody in the digital space, the problem becomes each of the individual skills, I will say, can usually lead you astray. In the sense, if you have somebody who's a brilliant social media manager, they're going to maybe make content that's super social, that's super engaging, but that stuff might not really help an SEO kind of style where it's pragmatic and looking towards a certain deliverable, which in turn might not help your ad side, which in turn might have nothing to do with your tech side. The secret sauce to me is just looking at that. I'm blessed and lucky that I have a certain few of those, not as good as other people, but I have certain skills. All I do is I walk in the room and say, let's look at each of these pieces. And if I don't have the knowledge on that piece, there's experts I'll call. I was on the phone last week with a WordPress expert. 2 weeks prior with a friend of mine who knew header bidding better than I could ever know it. The secret sauce to me is that you cannot look at this linear, singular, I should say. Instead, you have to look at it in particular with all these perspectives. And that to me becomes the key on any of this. Figure out all the perspectives and see where that connects for your business.
Metrics are the map to treasure, but sometimes it feels like we're reading them with a broken compass. What is your North Star when navigating the choppy waters of analytics? Is it like finding a needle in a haystack, but the needle is actually useful insights?
I think the North Star is also the reality that you could become your own enemy. A good friend of mine, Dr. Pelaez, he's a professor at Hofstra. He will talk about how the data could infer almost what you wanted to, in the sense that you could present data be any which way you would like. The number of viewers of this podcast is amazing relative to this audience, not amazing relative to that audience. And a lot of times with analytics, I kind of go with the gut, but I'll frequently tell the teams I'm working with, tell me if I'm wrong, and usually they won't say anything at first. I'll say, no, I really want to know where I'm wrong. I really want to hear that other side. And chop away. So the North Star becomes trying to find that truth in the story because just on its surface, hooray, traffic's up. Was it an anomaly? Almost something you mentioned earlier, where you could have that bad news and good news, if you will. Maybe all your numbers are up because it was just one freaking moment of good news. And I want to hear those other perspectives of someone else saying, you're wrong. Here's that reality.
So social media platforms come and go with each its own quirks. How do you adapt your strategy to these ever-changing arenas without getting social media whiplash?
That becomes a whiplash. I remember I took lessons from my Orthodox Jewish friends when I ran Adorama Pics on WhatsApp.
Right.
The community loves
Yeah, it is a big thing. Everyone in our community has WhatsApp. It is.
Yeah, it's like,
we get all our news from WhatsApp. It's crazy.
Yes, and mind you, walking into it, you're going, but it's not really a thing mainstream. But what you do is this. We went out for, me and Morris went out for lunch one day, and he sat down, and he's like, this is what I do, and he sends his voice messages. He loved doing voice messages across. And my phone with Morris has 5,000 voice messages in a row. And so a lot of it is we have the basic concepts. Like, I've always loved the concept that the play button, I could just do this, and everyone knows a play button or a stop,
right.
Square. Once tech kicked in, we've almost kept these concepts. A record player I just saw has the exact buttons that a CD player has.
Right.
We as a society have learned.
I'm not even sure what a record player is.
Yeah, it's what it takes a physical CD.
It's like a big CD.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of it is
what's a CD?
Exactly, what's a CD now at this point? Physical MP3s, that doesn't even work.
Yeah.
But in a way, it does everything we're saying. We can understand. You almost have to translate your thoughts and say, how does one play this form of music in the sense, is it speaking to an MP3, a Spotify, a CD, or a record player? How does one send some form of direct message on this? Okay, WhatsApp, we do this. I remember actually saying, there must be a group feature here, isn't there? Yeah, we do group text on WhatsApp. This was when WhatsApp first came out, or became popular, I should say. Everything has its nuance and its studying. You now, when I worked there, it's all streaming, and you almost have your baseline. Is this similar to X? And then how do I connect this to this?
So what do you see the future in connecting with audiences? Will it be through more immersive tech, deeper personalization, or perhaps something completely out of left field?
I think it's more, I've always said it's more like lakes and oceans at this point, in that I don't think we're going to one thing. We've already come out with the augmented reality glasses. We have the mobile. We have this. I think where the entire online media space is becoming divided into whatever your thing is. I think it's actually a great example of the community in WhatsApp. There they are. They're doing their thing. And then you have people who are big in Facebook. I have friends up in Quebec, Canada, and they love using Kijiji. That's their Craigslist.
What is that? I don't even know what that is. It's a Craigslist type. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And what's occurred in this conversation are the two parts.
Right.
What is that Kijiji? It's a Craigslist. I got you. I understand that concept. And I think that's illustrative of what's happening. You have people who are northeastern Canada using Kijiji, people who are in the community going across WhatsApp. You have people who are using, kids only use Snapchat and parents only use Facebook. And I think we're becoming that. Marco Polo and all these other apps that just people are developing their thing. It almost reminds me in a way with online publishing world. When I had the Celebrity Cafe, one guy said, the best you're going to get is something like number 9 or number 10 in terms of top end. And I said, that's great. Quite happy being in a very efficient number 9. I'll be happy number 12. I said, I don't care. And I think that's where it's coming, that we don't need to have one Uber app. We don't need to have one thing. In fact, I think it's almost a better world when we have these varieties and people can find, this is my thing, or they can innovate off of that other thing in whatever makes it better or not.
What's the trick? It's not only staying on the rodeo bowl, but making it look like a graceful ballet when following all the ad tech trends.
Ad tech trends are interesting because there's complication to it in that there's an understanding. There's a constant understanding. There's certain, I mentioned the experts earlier that I call. There's many experts for ad tech that I will call and say, I thought I understood this. Now I know nothing. Right now, for example, CTV is a great example of that. If I've told you how many CTV conversations I've had in the past year, month at this point, just like, explain this to me, explain this one to me. But that's it too. I hate rehashing it, but I think at CTV is probably a great point of that, where it's something that we're just catching on, we're just figuring out, and the trick is get yourself up to speed, at least to the point to have that conversation.
I just want to balance the between algorithmic genius and the human touch.
You never balance between the two. You always focus on the human touch. But that's my personal philosophy. You always look at the human under what the algorithm is throwing. No, in all seriousness, you have to acknowledge the both of them. I'm very big on looking at what is the human behind the scenes. One example I was always proud of was when I was CMO of Adorama Picks, as different as that example. Every day I called one of the top customers and I just talked to them. What do you need? What's going on? What makes you order? What makes you not? And probably called hundreds of the top customers. The data tells a portion of that story. But there's that human element of saying, dude, what made you do this? Just talk to me. I only ordered because the coupon was X percentage instead of Y percent. Okay, don't worry. We'll figure that out together. In the same token, there's a human versus data element. I unfortunately see specific to ad tech. We focus on the data so much, we forget the human element. I remember there was an employee, one of my favorite employees, she was having, her whole productivity was off. Everything was just off by the numbers. It wasn't good. By the numbers, her situation was bad. And I sat her down saying, I'm missing something. You're normally doing this, and what's happening? You're here. And she had all these other human elements to it, her story. She went through a breakup and this and that. And it illuminated. I said, I'm not pushing to know your secrets. If you care to share, I'm honored that you trusted me. But the numbers would have told a very different story. They would just have bad performing employees. And that said, the numbers here reflected something was amiss. And sometimes I feel like you have to jump between the two. What is that human element? How is this person tick? What makes them interested? What really gets them going? And do the numbers reflect that? And sometimes that could be a hell of a journey, and that could be sometimes a real challenge to find. But I feel like, especially in ad tech in particular, there's sometimes that mono focus to what is that deliverable? Did you get to that point? Okay, but what else is happening? What did the dude get to that point because he's best friends with so-and-so? He got a quick sale and you're praising it, and the other dude is doing this? Sometimes when you isolate just the data without the human element, I feel like we are causing ourselves more headache. And we seem to forget it's much more than just zeros and ones by any degree.
Right, with the advent of immersive technologies, advertising is no longer just visual and textual. What do you think about the AR, VR push to create unforgettable ad experiences?
I've yet to see that of interest to me personally, but I'm curious to see where that lands.
Why do you not find it interesting?
To me, I don't. I mean, to me...
You don't want to get in a virtual land that's just like yours? With no legs?
I prefer outside. I prefer humans. I prefer...
Right.
I'm very happy when I get to go to a conference and see someone in person. That's a wonderful thing. Virtual never has succeeded at hitting that.
Virtual conferences have never... There's been at least 10 companies that tried to do virtual conferences for the last 20 years, I think, and none of them have succeeded past the first 24 months.
Yes. I mean, they're a cute replacement. Sometimes you have the Zoom meeting and...
Right.
Great. The nature of this conversation has a human element to it, which, of course, you and I are speaking, but there's such a different element. You're in the room, and you're reading the room, saying, hey, dude, you feel this way, you sense this way. And yeah, the virtual is close, but I've always avoided that virtual personally if I can. But that said, sometimes it's not. I mean, I'm working with my team, and I have... with RetailWire.com right now is one of the teams I work with, and it's all virtual, of course. But yeah, the human touch never gets replicated as easily on virtual, so I've always avoided that. That gets pretty philosophical, but yeah.
As we stand at the precipice of what's next in ad tech, where do you see the industry heading? Will we see a renaissance of creativity fueled by new tech, or a dystopia where consumers are overwhelmed by too much noise?
I think we're going to be getting actually my opinion is we're going to move not to too much noise, but targeted, freaky noise.
Right.
The amount of data out there, the TikTok story recently, whether it should be sold or not, the data in China or not. To me, those stories speak to that element of the personalization of data. I think we're moving from a society which was, here's a billboard in the highway, you're driving on West Virginia for 4 hours, you see a billboard, go to Joe's country store. There's an anonymity to that. And now we are moving to the umpteenth degree of personalization where it's going, Dominic, here's a billboard saying your phone is at 12%. Do you need to charge? Your car is running low with electric and pull over. So I think the noise is going to reduce, but the personalization to the point of concern is going to increase if I had to predict anything. But that would be my cheesy prediction for the moment. Noise reduce, personalization increase.
So in the high-stake poker game of digital leadership, you've been both the dealer and the player, making bold bets and calling bluffs with the best of them. Leading teams through the calm and storms, what is your philosophy for steering the ship without going overboard?
It's interesting. Yes, I've both been on both sides of the deck at the same time,
Right.
both sides of the table at the same time. It's, first of all, on that dynamic, it's understanding that in particular, understanding that dynamic of people. It's, if you asked me in the early 2000s, I would have definitely viewed it all as numbers, and one side's the enemy, one side's the friends. For me, as a publisher, these are friends, and the ad tech could be the enemy, so to speak, and you had that. And then I realized it's just identifying what that other person needs and wants, what you need and want, and seeing that commonality of where we can, as humans, find something that gets everyone happy at the end of the day. That's all we want. I think we're all just too tired of arguing. It's just, let's find something that makes it work, and that, to me, has worked incredibly well at that.
How do you build creative teams? That's the whole question. Sorry.
That's the whole question. Okay, the way you said it.
No, I thought I had something afterwards. I was going.
No, how do you build creative teams? I love, because one of the things I preach is I'm quite happy with the B. And what I mean by that is...
With the what?
The B. Like,
the B.
You don't have to get an A on my team. If you get a B...
You're the B team.
Not to mean the B team so much as if you want to increase creativity.
Right.
And that you're expecting your team to always get an A every time. Number one, I should say, they're not going to ever often succeed at that level. But you're not giving them the opportunity to learn from that B. There's been decisions in the past week that I've seen where I said, that's not exactly what I would go for. But here's where I would learn to improve it, and take your idea and run with it. I think it's much better that than what I've seen too often is they'll expect that A level all the time, and then people get scared and they're not willing to innovate. There's times I'll say, I'm okay with that. That's not exactly it. Or even more frequently, I said, I don't agree with this idea at all. I'm going to support you on this idea to make sure it succeeds, and we're going to write down, if I'm right, which I don't think I am, but if I'm right, where we could adjust this to learn. And I find by doing that, then you get the team who's getting better at it, and then you get the team who becomes A players. I am unbelievably proud of so many members, people I've worked with, who've learned and now are incredibly successful in their careers now.
Is there a grade you don't accept?
Depends on the person. I mean, in act where it's going to get us sued, I'm very concerned. Where there's a grade of, my goodness, this is going to cost us. But if the value of the learning is greater than the loss, I might be quite happy. But it is a moving scale, so probably the worst college professor in such a manner. It's also seeing, you want to have people, if you're asking how to make them creative, how to get them better, you want to have people who are impassioned about what they're doing, and you don't get passion by stifle.
Right. So the digital landscape is notorious for burnout. How do you keep your team motivated and balanced, ensuring they don't crash and burn like a poorly managed PPC campaign?
You, number one, know the team. You know them well. And I say that in the sense, I recently had one of my team, I said to a person, you don't often travel to this location. Were you being courted by someone else to work for the company?
Right.
They were like, yeah, I was. I think you want to keep creativity to reduce burnout. At the same time, you just want to be aware of what you're dealing with. The digital landscape in particular is a highly volatile landscape, and not being aware of that is a little foolhardy. You have to be aware it's volatile, and how do you reduce that volatility? How do you figure out how to navigate with people?
So every superhero has an origin story. What's the kryptonite you've had to conquer in your journey to ad tech stardom? Like a 404 page moment.
The kryptonite, the overcoming situation. I think that's probably the deepest question you've asked this whole time. The one that caused me to pause in my tracks. I guess it's always, I'm trying to readjust to certain things. I'm always pushing on that. I come to think when you used 404 more than kryptonite, probably resonated more in a way.
Well, what about when Celebrity Cafe shut down? Was that hard on you?
With any of the shutdown, we sold it, and they did. It's what I realize is with any of this moments, I try to learn as often as I can. Like, I'm thinking, what I'm resonating with is I had a conflict recently with a business partner. I was like, where am I missing you? Where am I not connecting the dots?
There was no meeting of the minds, as they say.
But, I'm okay with, I'm missing something here. There's something else. I'm screwing this up. I got to figure out that. So I feel like it's the question of whether you're learning from those 404s. Right. It's not a 404 in terms of, oh my goodness, we've hit this error, so to speak. Wasn't my fault or move around it. I've had some great conversations with people where I will kind of analyze this, and they'll look at me and say, why are you beating yourself up on it? I say, no, I'm not beating myself up on it. I want to know, how do I prevent this 404 again? Was it something I did? Maybe it wasn't. Certain things, certain companies I've sold that the new ownership wanted to do A, B, and C. That's not my control. I can't say do X, Y, Z instead. That's whatever they want to choose and or not. But then there's other things when you still have these people. Can I learn? Can I work with? And most of the times the 404s are people more than tech. In general, meaning you're not looking at saying this ad campaign should have been done X instead of Y. You don't get upset by it. But when you instead saying, I've hit this conflict, but what can I learn from this? And sometimes we learn, sometimes we never learn, or we're always struggling to learn throughout life. But yeah, that's always, every 404 has made me something different, and always improved, and hopefully certain things I've improved from if I can. But I try.
So every Tom, Dick, and Harriet is jumping on the retail media bandwagon. 2024 looms as a horizon with promise of standardization and shift to the greater digital beyond. Sitting at the helm of Retail Wire, you're in the eye of the storm. How do you see the retail media landscape morphing in the face of these impending changes? And what is your game plan for navigating these waters without capsizing? Going back to a boating analogy again.
Yeah, exactly. The boating analogy, and I'll probably revert back to the human analogy. One of the ways I've actually done it is I've been talking with people in this industry of retail who are friends, competitors, which always strikes me as funny. People will say, how can you talk to a competitor? I'm like, how could you not? Let's have a human conversation. Say, where do we lie? Where am I hurting you or not? Where can I avoid the water? And especially retail media in general is an interesting space. It's gotten more crowded in the past few years. But retail itself, I was just at the NRF convention in January, which is a National Retail Federation, and is every innovation. And I feel like we're also in a slightly interesting time because we're post-COVID. And I say that because I think COVID and retail was interesting that the human society said, I don't have to leave my house. You could deliver me taquitos from New Mexico and Dutch jam from Pennsylvania, and I could wake up the next morning and there it is.
Right.
The app society changed. If you think there was a lot of human societal changes through COVID in terms of delivery, in terms of instant gratification, that I think is where we're starting. If I had a new future prediction with the retail world, that's where I'm starting to see in terms of digital media. Those intersection, personalization, as well as direct to what you want now has become a human component. So I think COVID definitely made human society say, wait, can I have this now or that, regardless of everything else?
Is there anything you've seen that you think is really cool in this space?
Yeah, I hate saying I'm always saying that. In a way, my kid is.
I love cooler screens. I know they got into a lawsuit with Walgreens, but I think that's the coolest idea in the world, is that you can see ads for your products on the outside of the glass when you get your Coca-Colas, and I think it's awesome.
And that, what's funny is differently, what struck me is, do you know Too Good To Go?
No, I don't.
My God, it's this app that you can get food waste, meaning like your pizza pile at the end of the day, all those slices on the counter you throw away anyway.
Right.
You basically pay 1/3 on the app. So if you want $20 a pizza, it's like $7 on the app. And you go in and the guy loads you up with all the pizza. And it's humongous in Europe. But it's almost gamified food waste. There's actually Facebook groups you can go to and they'll discuss the best place to go for pick up XYZ in your neighborhood. But it's fascinating me because it speaks to what I was saying in terms of that delivery, that instantaneousness, that there's an app you could look at right now and say, John Doe is getting rid of bagels 2 blocks away. And if I spend $4, I can walk into the bagel shop, walk out with 2 dozen bagels. Instant gratification, instant personalization, human component of food waste, saving the earth. And it struck me because it's gone so viral, speaking to that. And the aha for me on that becomes it's connecting those 4 or 5 dots in a row. Yeah, Too Good To Go is the one.
So standardization in retail media networks is like waiting for the subway during rush hour. It's crowded, it's delayed, and everyone has a different destination in mind. How do you envision this push for uniformity actually playing out in the retail media jungle? Will it be like cats to march in a parade, or more like finally agreeing on what business casual means?
I think it's much more cats, if anything.
Herding cats.
Yeah, if that.
I just love that phrase, herding cats.
Yeah, that was actually the name of a band I had in college, was the Incarcerated Cats.
What did they do?
Yeah, because at the time, the band, we played for a fundraiser to get cats out of prison. So whatever prison they were in. I don't know why they were in a prison. I don't know what crimes were gravely committed, but me and my buddy played this gig and called ourselves the Incarcerated Cats. I think it's all personalization. Yeah, it's all becoming a world, which is kind of intriguing. We're coming a world of standardization and mass at the same time of ridiculous personalization. And that's where I think we're always going to have more and more personalization within retail, with the media space. It's funny, I had a radio interview last week and the gentleman said, Facebook's always watching. And I said, well, could or might not be. Or maybe we're giving it so much information that their algorithms are becoming smarter in exactly who, what, when, where you are.
Right.
And that's that personalization journey that I think ultimately media is hand-tied to retail in terms of what are you advertising, something to buy, something to purchase, maybe a vacation, maybe something else, but some form of transaction. And throughout those two journeys, you're seeing these moments of hyper-personalization, as well as attempting standardization. But yeah, I think we're becoming a personalized world in that sense.
But obviously, retail media networks are pushing a lot first-party data. They're claiming first-party data is a new gold standard. How can we mine this without causing a privacy uproar or hitting fool's gold?
But again, fool's gold and mining I'm seeing as a theme throughout this 45, whatever. It's... when it comes to the entire data question, I think the average consumer does not recognize nor realize how deep it can go.
Right.
The average consumer is aware that the amount of data for targeting that is out there. So I'm always concerned in general when it comes to first-party data, when it comes to any of these issues. People in the space know it, but the average consumer, this is 100 miles beyond that. I was thinking a lot when I saw some of the Senate hearings recently with data in terms of TikTok, etc. The questions to me were not at the level that I would have hoped. Nothing in particular strikes me, but just conversation in general. I think we're having people pretty knowledgeable, but not necessarily asking those knowledgeable questions that we need to ask.
What do you think about the Walmart Vizio
data play? I mean, that's what was funny. Everyone said, what do you think about Walmart Vizio in terms of number of TVs being sold? And I kept replying, no, it's data, data, data. That's all this is. We're a world of, the Google whatever here, I'm pulling it off, the Google whatever, the Amazon Fire Stick, it's all data. So it was funny was how many people approached me streaming TV. I said, no, it's not to do with TV.
Do you see a world where you'll be able to buy from Walmart on your Vizio TV?
Of course. I think there's a world not only buying from Walmart via the Vizio TV, there's a world where Walmart understands you better based upon your watching habits. And you walk into that personalized Walmart experience, and they're showing exactly black shirts and white suit jackets because you raise the value when a character on TV.
This is my own. I should make this clear. This is my only white suit jacket. I got it a couple of years ago. It's Armani. It's my only one. I changed between you. I changed suits between you and Jason Fairchild.
All right, good.
I had a black suit on, and now I have a white suit. Yeah.
I like it. So that's good. But yeah, I think that's where it speaks to that personalization, where I think what's going to happen more is you're going to Walmart, and maybe you have your data scanned by AI, and you're going to get another Armani suit right there when you're looking through the cooler and you're seeing the screen. That, to me, is the depth we're going, in my opinion. We're just totally personalizing. I saw some tech where it will look at you. Of course, they do it now, right now. You look at your shopping history and say, you bought XYZ, would you like ABC? You already have people will message you saying, you obviously like wearing this, would you like to wear that? Here's a scarf that matches your white suit jacket. That's now, and I think it's just not even mainstream yet. It's almost there, in terms of mainstream. But that's where I think we're moving more and more.
You've only been at Retail Wire a while, but what are the readers most excited about, you think? Technology-wise.
Technology-wise, and come on, everything. I say come on. Every conversation to me, always there's questions of AI. But see, I think people in general, if you're asking in terms of Retail Wire specifically, it's...
Who's the readership mainly? Retailers?
We have a lot of execs, but we also have a lot of mainstream readers too. It's to go back. I hate using the word. I hate you pointing to humanity so often, but we always care about that. Oh my God, layoffs, did that affect my friend? Oh my God, Starbucks layoffs, did that affect? I was just on TV about the dollar stores closing, the 1,000 stores, and there's a human element to that. So when you have that personalized, oh my gosh, I'm connecting that dot, that personal effect. But that's also media in general. People want to feel connected. Maybe it's their favorite celebrity. Maybe it's their favorite thing. Maybe it's their uncle or cousin who's going to be affected by this, or their favorite McDonald's XYZ. We love feeling personalized. Tech is moving personalized. And readers in general, that's what the data speaks to. It shows you what those people in general are affected by.
So mentors can often be the best type of pop-up blockers. Who's been your human firewall keeping the malware of bad advice at bay?
I am always inspired and following my first mentor, Ed. He was my first boss.
Who?
Ed Linares was his name. And he's a Wall Street guy I worked with way early on, 94, 5, 6, I don't even know. And we still talk, and he's always been the first one to tell me when I'm wrong and when I'm right, and to humble and to... He probably instilled this whole view of managing with humanity, and it's always kind of, there's been many times his advice that he said 28 plus years ago has resonated throughout. So fortunately, it's an installed pop-up blocker of him. You say, what the hell are you doing? Don't do that, do this instead. Always. But, he had a philosophy in business, always manage people as people and humans as human and treat people well. Have I ever always succeeded? No. Everybody's stupid, and then you start to learn to not be as stupid as time goes on. That's unfortunately been the mission.
Do you have a personal board of directors?
Not in this case, but I always have advisors. But I've also, when you mentioned the mentoring, I've been doing coaching mentoring for the past few years. I've mentor platforms. So I've been lucky to do the mentoring, probably mentored, 150 plus startups through all the platforms. And I think that was possibly one of my best education moments in terms of running a company. You go through 150 people, mentoring them on what to do, and you're encountering their challenges. you got 150 reference points of people's, God forbid, their worst moment. They're coming to you saying, what the heck do I do? What's the situation? Give it to me. Let's go over the facts. We'll talk an hour again next week. We'll get you through this. Certainly the first time I was no doubt terrified to mentor. Now, well past 150, there's a responsibility to that other party. I'm very honored whenever a CEO or someone calls me for mentoring. But I also don't deny there's that moment that I'm lucky, I'm blessed that they're trusting me with their problems and I'm learning from it. That's gold.
Is there anyone you'd like to be stuck with in an elevator with in the ad industry?
In the ad industry, stuck in an elevator with? I've been fortunate to have a few stuck in the elevator moments. I actually had a very interesting one where I was at IEB and I took a friend who was anonymous for now, and I said, let's go for a walk right now. And he said, are we really going for a walk while the sun's setting so you could really talk to me about these deep issues? And I went, well, that's exactly what I planned. You think I timed this by accident? And it was a great moment to walk out there and say, dude, where can we connect? I'm missing why we haven't connected on this, and I just want to get the air out there. He's like, you chose sunset for this? I'm like, yeah, let's be clear, I did. I chose walking outside with alone. I wanted that moment.
Where was this? What city?
This was an IAB and IAB Marco Island.
So it had to be a beautiful sunset.
Absolutely beautiful sunset.
Ocean, everything.
And we talked. I got it out. And I said, dude, this is what you think. This is what I think. I'm so honored. It was actually probably one of the best moments because I realized my philosophy in working with people. It was funny was the philosophy was he had much more of an accountability management philosophy. Meaning I would like to have people on my team that fire and hire at will. And I said, I appreciate that. And I told him my favorite managerial story was, I said, I hired my godson to help me stack firewood on my side yard. It should have taken 2 hours if I had guys do it correctly. It took us about 7 or 8 hours. And that was a horrible investment. I said, no, not only that, I probably spent $400 paying this kid per hour than it would have cost to have someone else do it. I said it was the best investment I made. I got to spend 8 sweating hours with my godson. Probably the largest one-on-one block with my godson. It was the best blessing I could ever hope for. It was incredible. And that's always kind of been my philosophy. Oh my God, I lost out on this deal. I spent more money paying my godson. And it took more time. I got to spend time with my godson. And I think that's always been my philosophy in general at times. If I can have those moments, have people work with that you care about and hopefully enjoy what you got.
Any books that you've read recently that booted up your brain and sparked that marketing genius?
None in particular I could think of at this split second. Doesn't mean I haven't, just meaning to go from one emotional state to the other. There's nothing that comes quickly to mind.
Is there anything any book that you really, really like that you recommend to people?
Always I'm quoting Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I've read actually multiple times. And
love it.
In English and Italian for some reason. I was studying Italian. And
you read it in Italian?
Yeah, I figured it was a good way to practice Italian. And I went through the whole book in Italian. And then The Godfather too. Just practice and learn more.
I love Douglas Adams. I haven't seen the Dirk Gently TV show, though.
I never saw the TV show, but I did read the Dirk Gently series.
Yeah, I did too. And then I love his... what was his? He had a book about Last Chance to See. It was called. It was about all the animals that were becoming extinct. That was great.
That too, but of course I revert back to the original too.
And I think it's the part I liked the most was about the dodo birds. He mentions how the dodo bird became extinct, and maybe there's an ad tech lesson here in which the dodo birds didn't know how to fly, but when cats came to New Zealand, they got scared, ran up a tree, and then tried to fly.
And did not succeed.
Have wings! Straight out and kill themselves. And I'm sure, and that's my favorite part of that book.
Okay, but that can't be a good ending note for this interview. We need something.
No, it's not.
Better.
I'm not implying that you
suicide, my friend. Something much better than that.
So so besides reading Douglas Adams, how do you wind down?
I love hiking and I love playing music.
What do you play?
Piano and guitar.
Okay.
Primarily.
Classic, electric, blues?
I actually, believe it or not, I played blues, but in college I studied on the harpsichord of all things.
Okay.
Yeah, there was an audition for the
harpsichord.
Piano.
You don't hear that pretty much ever.
There was an audition for the piano, and I recall it was like
We'll just call you Wolf. We're going to just call you Wolfgang from now on.
No, what was funnier was, thanks for the Wolfgang reference. There was 30 people auditioning for 3 piano seats. And I went, those odds statistically are not great. And I looked down the hall, and there was like 4 auditioning for 3 harpsichord seats. And I'm from Brooklyn, and I don't think I ever saw a harpsichord before that day. And I sat down, and I said, one of the gals next to me said, do you know what you're going to play? And I said, well, what do you recommend with a harpsichord? I had no idea. And I believe I played Bruce Hornsby, and I only did it
in the rain.
I asked her, how do I do it? She said, do everything by arpeggio. Okay, great, I can do that. And I got in, and I studied that for 4 years. So, that was certainly the wind-down moment anyway.
What? So are you a whiskey or bourbon type person?
Neither.
Neither? You like drinks with little umbrellas?
No, I realized, it's funny with ad tech, especially if you mention drinks, I think of all these conferences where everyone's hitting it. I prefer much more, hey, let's sit in the corner, get a cup of coffee, have a conversation for 3 hours and really get to know each other. As opposed to the 33rd whiskey when you don't remember the person's first nor last name or anything in between. I'd rather not waste the time, and I'd rather have the precious time when I got.
So what about your global GPS coordinates? What's the country that gets a 5-star review on your travel blog?
I actually live part-time in Quebec City, Canada.
Really?
Yes.
Is that where you are now, or where you are now?
No, right now I'm in the States, but Quebec City, the picture you don't see over here. You wouldn't.
I didn't hear where you said you were.
I'm in Long Island at the moment, but
okay.
My picture of Quebec City is over there, actually. We were lucky. We went up there 16, 17 years ago. We used the baby fund that for the non-existent baby, said, forget it, let's just buy a condo. And at the closing, my wife was pregnant with the baby fund now within the condo. So we've been lucky and have friends and family up there. I have a lot of friends and family up in Quebec City, as much as I probably do here in Rhode Island, New York.
Yeah, I've had like 3 interviews about Long Island now, and I've been putting it out that how I say it, Long Island.
Yeah, you're not. Yeah, as long as it's LON space GUI. Right.
Long Island. Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you miss Brooklyn? Or are you there a lot?
I'm there often. Do I miss it? It's what's created me. Brooklyn's created me, so I certainly miss it.
What part of Brooklyn? Bay Ridge? You seem like you might be from Bay Ridge. You are?
I had an apartment in Bay Ridge, and I grew up from Marine Park, Flatbush Avenue, basically. I was literally around the corner from Flatbush Avenue until age 18 or so.
Oh,
yeah,
it's nice. Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Flatbush. I mean, I went to Brooklyn College. That's why.
I passed Brooklyn College 2,000 times in my life, possibly literally.
Right on Nostrand?
Yep. I took the B40, I think it was the Brooklyn Flatbush Avenue bus. I passed it there too, transferred Nostrand and around Brooklyn College, get on the train, commute to Wall Street every day at that point. Commuted every day until September 10th, 2001.
Yeah, you should take a look. I mean, if you ever go by, it's growing. The college has all these new buildings and stuff.
You totally missed that punchline. I commuted every day until September 10th, 2001. I had a doctor appointment on 9/11. I couldn't go that day. So I would have been by the towers, but 9/11, I had a doctor appointment, so I didn't go to the city that one day. It was the one day I didn't commute, and I missed the whole was not in the heat of the action on that. So yeah, it was always a funny, random moment in my life to commute every day to Manhattan, except 9/11.
Where could you live if you wanted to? Like, what's your ultimate city? Where are you going to retire? Sicily, maybe?
No idea where I'm going to retire, but I think me and my wife love to travel. There's been many times we've worked from wherever we are. I've had wonderful times in Quebec City, Santa Fe, New Mexico, New York. To me, it's visiting family and being with people as much as you can and connecting those dots as often as you can.
Hey, before we go, I like to ask people, if you could send yourself a time-traveling text message to yourself in the past when you started in the industry, which I guess was 1995, what would you tell yourself?
Don't worry. That's it. Don't worry. Every worry one has, don't worry about it. It's going to happen again, and you should learn from it. It's all okay.
Would you listen to yourself?
No. Age 25, I wouldn't have listened whatsoever.
And that's a wrap. Today, Dominick Miserandino took us on a wild ride through the digital jungle. From the days of dial-up dinosaurs to the AI overlords of tomorrow, he's seen it all and lived to tell the tale. Massive thanks to our sponsors, Troutman Amin LLP, because every good adventure needs a legal safety net. These guys are like digital Batman, swooping in to save the day when you're drowning in compliance nightmares. And let's not forget Diablo Media, the performance marketing wizards who turn every click into a golden goose. Seriously, if they had a magic wand, it would be a mouse. Thanks for tuning in, you beautiful marketing maniacs. Keep your eyes sharp, your campaigns sharper in the world of advertising. Fortune favors the bold, the brave, and the borderline crazy. This is Pesach Lattin, signing off. And always remember our mantra: stay curious, stay bold, and know more than you did yesterday.